Hello everyone, my name is Ayush and I am the tutor for AP Human Geography here at EdEquity. So today we'll be getting into the very first unit of AP Human Geography, which is on basic concepts. So before we get into more complex units such as urban population, etc., we have to understand the basic concepts of geography and the basic principles that it underlies. Now, this lesson, the very first lesson, will be an introduction to geography. Before we start learning about geography, it is very important that we understand what is geography and really what it encompasses. So, what is geography? A textbook definition will give you that geography is the systematic study of the spatial patterns of all phenomena on or near the surface of the earth. But really, what does this mean? Basically, geography is the study of natural patterns and human patterns that happen across the earth. So, for example, it studies mountains, rivers, lakes, and how these things affect humans and human society. It studies the underlying structures of human society. It studies human social constructs and things like that. So, uh, really, geography is really a very broad field and a very vast field at that, and it's not something that can be summed up in a few sentences. So, I will try to help you understand really what geography is. Geography is not only all I said, geography is also the study of the interactions between humans and their environments. So, here on this picture, it's a very nice picture because it perfectly juxtaposes the mountains, a natural feature, with the city, a human feature. So, this kind of juxtaposition is very nice, and it kind of hints at and relates to what I'm talking about, the interactions between humans and their environments. So, such as rivers, lakes, water sources, for example, these things have large impacts on human society because obviously humans cannot live without water, and water is a very essential part of our life. So often, human society and cities are situated close to water sources like lakes, rivers, and this is very obvious because um, if you look back at the very first civilizations that appeared on Earth, human civilizations, they were all situated near a major river. So, for example, the Nile River Delta Valley Civilization, the Indus Valley River Civilization, and the Yangtze River Valley Civilization in China. So, all these civilizations were situated close to a river for a very good reason, and because at that time their environments impacted them a lot. So, um, the space close to a river or a water source was the most advantageous environment at that time. So, that's just one example of how environments have a very visible impact on human society historically, but not only historically, nowadays as well. Um, Even nowadays, a lot of very major cities are close to water sources. So, really, it's the geography's the study of the interactions between humans and environments and how they affect each other. Because it's not only a one-way relationship, it is also a two-way relationship. You might say more so relationship on how humans affect environments, but these are things that we will be getting into later on. But that's the first part of geography, or should I say one of the parts of geography. Geography is not only what I said, but it's also the study of spatial patterns. So, nature and human society is not random. We have patterns, nature has patterns, and it's the job of geographers to identify these patterns and analyze these patterns and the meaning behind these patterns. So, on the right, I have a map, and it shows the net migration rates of provinces or rural districts in England and the Wales. Uh, we will get more to these topics later on, and after you finish this course, you will understand this map much better. But what this map shows is it shows a pattern, and this is a pattern that geographers have mapped out, and this is the pattern that the geographers that made this map in the first place are trying to study. So geography is the study of these patterns and the identification and analysis of which. So that's another part of what geography is. But other than that, geography is also the study of borders. So borders are not as simple as you think. Um, if you look at the borders of various countries across the world in Europe, Asia, and North America, South America, you will notice that most borders are not geometric, except a couple of states in America. Um, but these are all for a reason. Uh, there's a reason the borders are constructed as they are, and they are not arbitrary. Each border, each dent and curve in a border has a story behind it. Perhaps it's a very simple story simply because that's where the land ends, like you see in France. But some of the borders it has between Italy, Switzerland, Germany, um, there's a story behind it, and there's a reason why it's situated there and why it has the curves and dents that it has. In America, a lot of the borders between the first 13 states, New York, Pennsylvania, they're all curved. They're not very geometric, if you see. But if you look at the borders of Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, these are very geometric. Part of the reason is because um, these lands were acquired in large amounts very quickly by the Americans, and they identified the borders as geometric. So really, borders are very complicated, and borders are another topic which we will be getting onto in the future. But geography is, as I said, it is also the study of borders. Not only that, geography is also the study of maps. Maps are not that simple. Maps are very complicated. On the bottom, I've shown this map because it's a very weird map, and you might wonder why this map was made this way, but there's a very good reason behind this map, and it does have its specific uses. And this is just to show that there are many forms of maps which try to accomplish various different things, and this is simply just one of them. Although geography is in fact very complicated, there is a very nice way that you could sum it up. It could be summed up very nicely in this one question. Geography is, as dictated by this question, it is what is the why of where. Might sound very complicated at first, just like the MC Escher painting on the left, but it's really the study of the analysis of locations, cities, and really the why behind these locations or where. So it's really what geography is. It's the study of what is the why of where. And I want to get more specific. As you might have observed from all my previous explanations, geography is in fact very vast, and because it is so vast, it is divided up into subcategories, and one of which is geography is it's often divided up into two main categories: human and physical geography. And the title of this course is Human Geography, so as you would expect, we will be focusing more on the human geography subsection of geography. But we need to understand what human geography is and its difference between physical geography. And in what better way to answer a question than with another question? So at the bottom right, I have a picture of a forest, a very snowy forest, and I want to ask you, how would a physical geographer interpret this image, firstly? And secondly, how would a human geographer interpret this same image? I don't expect you to know, but how they would is a physical geographer might look at the physical features He or she might look at the trees, try to identify what kind of trees they are, identify the mountain if it has a name, and really what they are doing here. And obviously, it's very cold, as suggested by the snow and ice. And does its location have anything to do with its oddly high temperature? Um, it is very cold. It's not often that trees seem so frozen, and a physical geographer might also notice that, well, half of these trees, or at least a part of it, are all covered in ice, while the other part are all free of ice. So does that have to do anything with it? With does that have anything to do with anything? In fact, and these are the questions that a physical geographer might have, or things that a physical geographer might try to analyze. A human geographer might look at this picture, and he or she might wonder um, how this place is related to human society and humans. Obviously, it looks very desolate, so it's probably not close to a city or any town or any big human civilization. So it's very desolate. A human geographer might look at it and try to find why there's no city close to it, why it's so desolate. And obviously, it's very cold. Perhaps it's desolate specifically because it's very cold. It's a very cold place. So that might be a question a human geographer might have, or an explanation a human geographer might give. So a physical geographer looks more at physical properties. A human geographer analyzes the interactions between human and physical properties and analyzes more on human properties. But you have to be exact. It's more so the interaction between human and physical properties, because the study of human properties lies in psychology and other fields. So that's really what human geography is. I also want to show this image just to show you how big human geography is. Um, it might sound simple, but in fact it's really very complicated. As you can see, you have the field of economics, and you have economic geography, you have medical geography, you have marketing geography, you have a little bit hard to read, you have historical geography, you have social geography, you have all kinds of geographies, because geography, physical geography, or natural properties affect a lot of human properties, and they are in fact very correlated, and these links can be very easily identified sometimes, and these links are often analyzed, which is what human geography is, which I really want to show you. Let's also look at the data that geographers use. You could argue that data is the most essential part of geography, because a lot of the information on geography, location, etc., well, we need data for that, right? So data can be classified into two main categories: qualitative data and quantitative data. And you might have learned this in your science class, but it's also something used in geography, and it's very important to geography as well. Quantitative data is very numerical. It's a quantifiable data. It often uses hard numbers, which are usually acquired through mathematics, experimentation, sometimes observations even. So for example, the Nile River is 6,693 kilometers long. That's a very specific detail, very specific information. Probably scientists figure out that information, geographers figure out that information by actually measuring the Nile. So it was an experiment. It's a very quantifiable data. The length, it can be measured. It's a numeric data. Another data, the population of Germany is 83.24 million. That's a lot. Probably not exact, depends on which year, and the population changes all the time. It's not super specific. It's more of an approximation for this year in 2021. That's the birth population of Germany, but that's also very that's specific, and it's numerical, and it's quantifiable population. It's something that can be measured through the census, and what the census is we will get into later. but it's something quantifiable, it's something you can calculate. Um, on the other hand, we have qualitative data. It often describes qualities, characteristics. It's more subjective, if you might say, uh, but not always, and it's often acquired through observations, testimonies, interpretations. So it's not very scientific and very precise, right? It doesn't use specific experimentation, at least not always. And for example, we have in Virginia in the United States, the leaves of trees turn orange, yellow, and red during fall. It's an observation. I mean, if you go to Virginia and it's fall, you will see that the leaves on the trees are all orange, yellow, and red. And therefore, that's an observation, and that's a qualitative data. Yeah, it's it's not something you could measure it and turn into quantitative data. Maybe if I said how many trees turn orange, yellow, or red, what percent of the trees, that would be more quantitative data. But simply saying that the leaves of the trees turn orange, yellow, and red, that's a qualitative data. I also want to ask, as a question, what category do maps belong in? Because the next lesson I'll be teaching maps. So let's get a head start. Well, what category do maps belong in? What are maps? Well, maps are obviously they represent information. They represent geographic information, though not always. I will specify, which we will get into later. But uh, that's the question. Well, where do they belong in? And in fact, they belong in either category, because maps are, in fact, as I said before, they are very complex, and they can be either, depending on the kind of map, they can be either qualitative or quantitative depending on what they represent. So that's just one example of many, and that's the type of data the geographers use. Later on, next lesson, we will be getting into the maps, and we will have an introduction to maps, but that marks the end of the very first lesson, and I thank you for tuning in, for listening.